Small treasures. You never know what you're going to find in a book. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and today we're going to take a look at a few books, paperbacks and some small hardcovers, which have some interesting things added to them. You all know that we've all heard that there's people find money in books. I've heard that people hide money in books, and that there's always money to be found in books. And I've never ever found a book where I found a dollar bill or any money in it. So that seems to be the only money in books is when you sell them. But there are other things that you often find in books when you're a book collector, a book dealer, a reader. You'll find various coupons. You might find different kinds of bookmarks that people leave in them. Sometimes they leave postcards, and they use those postcards as a bookmark. Sometimes there's letters and other things, but that's usually kind of a not common occurrence. You'll find bus tickets and other things that people use as bookmarks while they're reading. But today we're going to take a look at some of the things that little treasures in books. And first of all, we're going to start off with some popular library books. This is Angle of Attack by Joseph Landon, Popular Library. Need my glasses. G117, and this is a Popular Library with the review slip in it. A complimentary book from Popular Library, New York City. Angle of Attack has the author, has the date of publication, January 13, 1953. Original publisher was Doubleday. And this is the book, Angle of Attack. A later, thick 35 cents vintage paperback. A lot of these were illustrated on the back covers, also quite nice. Of course, review slips were used to when you send a copy to the newspaper or the reviewer to have the information, and it's also just says complimentary, kind of introducing the book to the reviewer, the editor, or whatever of a magazine or a newspaper. They could just send the book, but it's a courtesy to send, put in a review slip. In those days, the review slips were small, like this size. They were little card. This is like kind of a cardboard, but sometimes they were just really thin paper. Recently, from the 80s and 90s, hardcover publishers would send out 2 and 3 page letters on 8.5 by 11 paper, which was like their review letter from the publisher, and it had a lot of information, pictures, and all kinds of things. And even paperback publishers do that now. But here in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, review slips were used, and that's for Angle of Attack, another Popular Library book, The Naked Rich by Vivian Connell, which was number G115. And here is the review slip for that. When I bought these books, the review slips were in the back of the book. I didn't even know that they were review copies. Just happened to find it, and I go, oh wow, how nice, very cool. And the back cover, Royal Pickup. Next book is Popular Library G131, The Gathering Darkness by Thomas Gallagher. And I'm not sure who did the cover art on these. The review slip for The Gathering Darkness was published in August 18th, 1953. Very great, really cool, good girl art. A novel of sin and degradation. Emotional ruin. The back cover of Royal Pickup. Angle of Attack. Anybody Want a Girl? The Air Force flyers in the hotel room looked up in surprise, and has some great cover art. So they have some great art on the back covers as well. And the last of the four is Free and Easy by June Weatherall. It's Popular Library G129. And here's the review slip for that. Published July 21st, 1953. Beautiful cover art. I'm going to put these like this. And the back cover. Twisted Lives. Fast artificial lives sustained by liquor, free love, and pretense. So that's what this story is about. These are kind of steamy novels that are the kind of thing that guys coming home from Korea probably wanted to read, because these came out in '53, around that time when the Korean War was going on, and when it had just was going to end, and GIs came back from battle, and they're looking to read some steamy stuff, and all of the covers, these are pretty steamy covers. Beautiful stuff. So it's like you see this on the stand and you say, I want to read that book. I want to find out what's going on there. Every cover shows a really stunning, beautiful woman, very sexy woman, and a guy that's interested in her very, very much. So these are really cool. But this is like what's really cool is having the review slips. Review slips are generally pretty scarce, especially from vintage paperbacks. They're pretty scarce, and to have them is really nice. Beautiful condition too, just like the day that they were put in the book and mailed out to the editor or publisher of the magazine. Another book that I want to take a look at, show you, is The Mysterious Mr. Sabin by E. Phillips Oppenheim. This is Arthur Westbrook Company. It is in their adventure series number 108, and it's from 1908. And it's an early dime novel mystery. Arthur Westbrook Company was from Cleveland, Ohio. And this is one of the series. These books were published in series in 1908, and they were available by mail order mostly, or subscription, not in bookstores. And this is the Heart series, which is a different series from the Adventure series, which is adventure mystery books. But the cool thing about this one is that it had has a slip in it, piece of paper, Faithfully Yours by E. Phillips Oppenheim. So that's his signature. It was in the book, and that's a cool little item there. So just to show you that. Another thing is, next book is, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this. It's The Traveler's Library by Kwaidan, Kwaidan, and it's a British little hardcover. Stories and Studies of Strange Things, Kwaidan, by Lafcadio Hearn, Lafcadio Hearn. It's Jonathan Cape, London, and this was Traveler's Library 1927, and has an introduction from 1904. And this book is a nice little British hardcover. I doubt that there was a dust jacket. And Traveler's Library, 1927. So this is Jonathan Cape, London. That's the author, Hearn. And it's stories and vignettes about life in Japan. This is a traveler's library with various books in the series, various volumes, and came out in 1927. In this edition, came out earlier. This is introduction by Hearn is from 1904 from Tokyo. So pretty interesting book. Contents, a lot of Japanese titles. I don't know what these are. These are story titles, or maybe they are Japanese various religious or spiritual entities in their religion. I'm not sure, but interesting thing about this also is that in the book we found a card, and this is from 1927. If you are interested in books, fill in and dispatch this postcard. So it's a postcard, a British postcard, to Now and Then, which is a magazine. A periodical of books and personalities is published from 30 Bedford Square, London, where Jonathan Cape is located. A copy of the current issue will be sent free of charge, in capital letters, if you will fill up the form on the reverse side and post this card. So here's the card. Goes printed paper rate. It's inland stamp, 1.5 pence to Jonathan Cape at Bedford Square, London. And you put your name and address here to receive a free copy of the magazine, which Now and Then magazine is basically their catalog of books that basically their catalog. So that's actually, I'll put these over here like that. So that's their catalog of books, and you will see other books in the series, which they do have quite a few. So I just want to let you know. So the Traveler's Library, there are quite a few books in here, and just want to see. There's Guy de Maupassant, Somerset Maugham, Ernest Brahma, a lot of Samuel Butler, Ambrose Bierce, quite a few books by important collectible authors in that series. And this book is also signed here to his sister in Christmas of 1930. Whoever gave this as a gift, it was given as a gift in 1930. Originally came out in 1927. So that's kind of interesting. And this postcard from the publisher, something you don't see that often from the early books like that. The last item is another little British book in praise of Bernard Shaw. And it's got a little bit of wear on the spine, but a very interesting book because there's quite a few little interesting things inside. Now, I'm going to show you is that this is a praise of Bernard Shaw, and it's an anthology for old and young, and it's edited by Alan M. Lang. This is Frederick Muller Limited, publishers in London. It's a little British paperback hardcover of about 64 pages, and this is in praise of Bernard Shaw. And this is the publisher has the series in praise of. So this is the complete books in the in praise of series, and you see in praise of Christmas, in praise of Bernard Shaw, also Churchill, Shakespeare. And the interesting thing is on the bottom here, they have a quote from Bernard Shaw of this book. And Shaw states, quotes, "I did not know there was so much kindness in the world. I dare not pretend to deserve it, but I like it tremendously." GBS, George Bernard Shaw, February 1948. This book was published in London by Frederick Muller, little hardcover, in 1949. And this is a second impression from 1951. And there's a foreword by Alan Lang. And nothing but praise, different people talking about Bernard Shaw. Shaw at age 23. Interesting picture because we know of him with the long scraggly beard when he was older. The novelist Robert Louis Stevenson writes about him. Different people praising him. Shaw in 1889. Extraordinary man. So this has various, J.B. Priestley, crime writer, writes about him. Various important people. Just to give the genial iconoclast, Shaw in 1891. And various people. Winston Churchill wrote something about Shaw, and various other people. It's a very nice book. It's a tribute to Shaw. There's a picture of Shaw in 1925. Beautiful book. Many well-wishers and very knowledgeable people. Shaw in 1929. And the interesting thing is that the book has, this book by Lang, has some enclosed material. The thing of it is that it, Lang was obviously an admirer of Shaw, and there are a group of people called the Sharians, which are admirers of George Bernard Shaw, and one of them was Vera Cherubini, and her, along with Alan M. Lang and others, wrote in various magazines about Shaw and about his work. They were very complimentary of him, and they were admirers of his writing and of him. So Alan Lang's book he inscribed and gave as a gift to Vera Cherubini. This is Vera's copy with compliments. Thank you. And this is from 1959. He signed it. This is his copy that he signed and gave to her. And enclosed in the book was a postcard of George Bernard Shaw. And talks about him. He passed away in 1950. Irishman who came to London at the age of 20. After some years of struggle, he achieved spectacular success, and the Shavian, S-A-V-I-A-N, legend was born. In one form or another, it has flourished ever since. A leader of the Fabian Socialists and the author of over 50 internationally famous plays, in which he expounded his social philosophy in an adroit mixture of sermonizing and iconoclastic comedy. He was a controversial guy, George Bernard Shaw, and he was an Irishman and very pro-Irish, and looked at in a lot of different ways by people. So that was Shaw, and there was a lot of admirers, and the Sharians were admirers of Shaw, and Lang was one of the admirers, and he wrote, "Why he would not, a heavenly exclamation mark in one scene." This is an article that was published in a magazine or a book that Lang wrote, and this was he cut it out and placed it in the book along with the postcard, and or maybe Vera Cherubini placed it in there. But also in the book, very interesting, is this was a letter. I mean, a poem in memoriam of George Bernard Shaw, and he typed it out Here is no time for solemn grief and tears. Weep if you will for some unhappy one, cut off with all his vision, deeds, and undone, but not for him whose mind was matched with years. And it goes on. It's a memorial to George Bernard Shaw. Alan M. Lang signed it, so he signed it here. And this is a beautiful associational piece for anybody who is interested in George Bernard Shaw and his work, and admires his writing and his work. So there's a postcard in there. There's a typed written memoriam. There's a from April 18th, 1959, Alan M. Lang's compliments as he gave this as a gift, inscription as a gift, and in praise of George Bernard Shaw, or Bernard Shaw as he was called. And it just goes to show some of the interesting things that you can find in books. You never know what you're going to find. There's always the odd bookmark, the odd postcard, or the odd train or bus ticket that people use as bookmarks. But then there's also items that sometimes have to do with the author or the subject matter, or review slips, or letters. And these are all like cool, really interesting items, and in some cases historical items. I think that the Popular Library review slips are kind of scarce items, and they never show up today. The signed E. Phillips Oppenheim sheet with the Arthur Westbrook dime novel is certainly a rare item, I think, and the Japanese book with the British publisher Jonathan Cape's postcard is something special you don't see. And of course the personal copy of Alan Lang, who he gave the book to Vera Scirapini, is a special George Bernard Shaw item, and it's a special interest to a lot of people, I think. So I just wanted to you never know what you're going to find in a book. Again, like I say, I always hear people talking about, they find money, they find $100 bills in books and stuff, and I go,
we'll keep looking.
And keep looking, but I've never found that, The only money I found in books occasionally is when I sell a book and I make a little money selling it.
Very little.
But most of the time I end up, instead of that, I end up spending money on books. So it works out the other way. But as it does with all of us, I guess. But anyway, I want to thank you for taking a look at this. I think it's kind of interesting. You never know what you're going to find in books, and I think when you find letters and things like that, I did one of the earlier videos talked about science fiction author Alan E. Nourse, and in one of his science fiction hardcovers from the 1950s, there was also a letter, and we talked about that. And I think any of these, these are historical documents, I think, and they're worth saving. They're one-of-a-kind items. They're associational items with the book, but they enhance the interest in the item in the book, and they enhance the value. They enhance the value also, but they enhance the pleasure of having that book, and the history of that book, and the meaning of that book, and the meaning behind that book. Because a lot of times these letters and things, they're an open window or an open door to a little bit something extra. Even the review slips. I mean, it just tells you not only the month and the year, but the day that the book was published. So it's like, just some really interesting, detailed information, I think. So, thanks for looking. Give us a thumbs up. Spread the word, the good word, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.